say, and I tell, nobody in particular. I was having a conversation with Joel Beta, and I tell him, I'm like, damn, bro, I got all this money on the street that I need to get, but I can't get it. I got nobody out there. I don't know. I can't get a hold of anybody.
Back against the wall, CL20's knocking rated. IGI's tripping, validated, shoot ready.
That got me caught up, and that's where their resentment is directed at those individuals.
I go by my way. I can't even get people to do a music video because everybody's like, bro, I'm afraid somebody's gonna follow you and shoot you, and they're gonna shoot us. And
over at him, and Craig's not even tripping on him. You don't say nothing about him, don't say nothing to him. But as we're walking, I look over at him, and sure enough, my mentality, I got that bully mentality at that time. I look at him, and I'm already thinking, let's get this fool. And all right, you guys, as you guys can see by the thumbnail, this is the beginning of a new podcast that me and Jay Hands are putting together called Black Widow Podcast, the Black Widow Podcast. So let me tell you a little bit about how this all came to fruition. So as you guys know, me and Jay Hands got together on a few occasions, and we put a couple of videos out, and you guys like the chemistry. Jay Hands is somebody that I have an immense amount of respect for. He's a very knowledgeable individual. Even though he wasn't a C, it doesn't matter. Like Josh, Jay Hands is able to hold a conversation when we talk about these type of politics, the things that you guys like us to talk about. And we decided to name it the Black Widow Podcast because a lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about is Black Widow based. We're going to talk about the investigation. We're going to talk about some of the things that happen with leadership. We're going to talk about tips. We're going to talk about other things that you guys might want to hear us talk about. We're going to take suggestions. So this is the beginning of it. And the way that we're going to run this is sometimes it'll be on my channel. Sometimes it'll be on Jay Hands' channel, Renegade Media. For those of you that don't know, Renegade Media is a channel that we support. So if you're not tapped in, if you're not subbed, subscribe to that channel. Anyway, so that's how we're going to do it. One day we'll put on a podcast on my channel. The next day we'll put a podcast on his channel. We'll go back and forth. We're going to try to get out at least 4 podcasts a week. It might not always happen. There's things that come up. He's putting out content. I'm putting out content. We're both always busy with trying to put out, our own content. But we want to give this to you guys because a lot of the viewers, an overwhelming amount of the viewers tapped in and said, you know what, you guys need to collab, put something together, and in the form of a podcast or just you guys getting on together and kicking around different topics. So that's what we're gonna do. So before I go ahead and let him in right now, I just wanted to give you guys the backstory on how this all came together and the reason why we ultimately decided to put this together. So without further ado, let's get into it. This is episode 1 of the Black Widow Podcast.
all right, well, like I said, I talked to Boxer about this podcast, and I felt like it was important and necessary because we both share the same perspectives, just from different lifetimes. We both, this is perspectives from 2 organizations, the NF and Nuestra Raza, coming together to talk about general topics and topics that I've seen subscribers ask me, and I felt like it would be up for a good debate. That's why we both chose to name it the Black Widow Podcast, because the Black Widow signifies, a poisonous, venomous, and that's how we look at it. Like the poisonous propaganda is what we're going to continue to address and relate to the public about certain topics, delicate topics people don't want to talk about, but most importantly, extract positive messages for the youth so they can understand like what really goes on in this lifestyle. So the topic I wanted to talk about today that I was having trouble with, that a subscriber asked me, is that me, Boxer, and a couple other channels talked about a filter that got circulated by the Fed and state faction in regards to clearing carnales and norteños that were caught in between the internal conflict, the civil war of the state and Fed faction. So a lot of these individuals finally got cleared after being deemed on frivolous and faulty charges, but Tibbs lost his life because he showed favor towards the state. And now that everything's already at peace and they reached some type of agreement to kind of calm down the animosity and the civil war, we're still talking about the legend named Tibbs that fell behind the civil war. And I was just kind of concerned, like, who's going to take credit for that? Who's going to actually be held accountable, and the penalty when another legend, another brother that actually was just probably compliant to NF Constitution or just was favoring one side because he actually agreed with them, just by a matter of opinion, he lost his life in the feds to a gruesome death, from what I heard.
Yeah, it was, bro. It was. Um, yeah, man. So it's a topic that I've talked about before. I put out a couple of videos when the Truth Filter first came out. There was a couple people besides myself that got a hold of that filter, and I broke it down the best that I could, bro, so that people that are not familiar with that lifestyle could understand on any level. And there's a lot to it, when you're dealing with the NF Constitution and you're dealing with those politics. A lot of people just see it for what it is on the face of it, but they don't really understand the intricacies of the politics, bro. And that's what I tried to explain in those 3 videos that I told you about earlier. The retort, the state retort, what are the other 2 called?
The breastman filter
The
and
breastman filter
the resurrection. The
and the
resurrection, yeah.
and the insurrection.
Insurrection, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, let's get into it, bro. Let's get into it.
Yeah, I liked how because it reminded me of all the times that I received filters. A lot of times the way things are worded can always just be generalized, can be open for interpretation, but there's always that loophole for misinterpretation. So a lot of people didn't understand when they were saying when they were pointing out different carnales and their misconduct, they were referencing what articles and what sections and generalizing it. But both sides can utilize that same constitution and argument for each side. Yeah. So a lot of people are going to misinterpret it on each side because one side's one-sided. The feds are being biased and being on their side, but they're going to utilize the same constitution and write it in the same fashion and arguments to actually support what it is that they're trying to say and what they're trying to do. Me personally, after watching the Truth Filter, I don't agree with the feds, and only because it was stipulated and it was mentioned in the video, there was protocols already in effect prior to these individuals ever getting snatched up, that if we were ever to get snatched up and these seats were vacant, this is the proper protocol on who's going to elevate in these COC positions. But obviously there was a change in the mind when they got to, what was it, Santa Rita? They felt like they could control this. Yeah, they felt like they can control the street regiment in state California. And then they go to the feds unwillingly wanting to relinquish their leadership positions, not only leaving the state faction disorganized and confused, like, what do we do next since you don't want to relinquish your position? But look at the lack of communication within the years. They didn't get at when they were everybody was in ADX. The lack of communication went on for like almost 9 years. So what did you expect the state to do? Just sit there, just wait, hand and foot for a line of communication to be established? The feds didn't even have establishment of communications with each other. So to me personally, I think the feds did the right thing, even though it could be pointed out that it was hijacked as well. They finally said, you know what, enough's enough. We're going to take it. This belongs to us, which caused a civil war, which caused them to be disputing one another's status and one another's word and palabra, and then deeming one another. I still think the protocol in itself was constitutional.
Yeah, that's good stuff, bro. There's a lot of different moving parts to this, man. I mean, when you really get down to the nitty gritty, bro, it's all about money. No matter what anybody says, it's about money. It's really not about relinquishing positions. It's about relinquishing money. That's what it comes down to. But when you really get into NF law and the protocols and the policies and the Constitution, you gotta look at some of the verbiage, bro. So and then there's a little bit more to it, as far as like Conejo, the what happened to him in the past. I know Conejo personally. I was under him for 5 years, and I functioned under him, and I'm aware of everything that happened with him within his history. And everybody knows that he got stripped because of things that he was doing. This was before Operation Black Widow. He was stripped and went up for a vote. He got demoted from a Cat 3. He got demoted to a Cat 1, and his street say was taken. I mean, he was never going to have a position dealing with any kind of street activity ever again. He knew that. So that's one part of it. The other part is you're correct, bro. there was protocol set in place for when the NF becomes incommunicado, or they're in a position can run the organization, effectively, because of where they might be, somewhere like Santa Rita or the Glenn Dwyer facility where they ended up later. There's there's protocol set in place. It's a 15. There's 15-1. There's basically it's a 15-1. So 15 being the highest, all the way to 1. They got 15 guys that are set up to where if these guys become their positions become vacated, they'll slide right over into those positions. However, the thing is who makes the decision about when they become incommunicado, or when they no longer can effectively run the organization? So that's open for interpretation right there. They obviously felt like they could. The state felt like they couldn't. Now, I understand what you're saying, though. What are these brothers going to do up there in the Bay? They're just going to wait around. Like, they took the banks with them. They took all the money. They took control of all the figureheads out there on the streets. So what were they supposed to do? I understand that, the communication was what it was. I had to go to Corcoran, bro, as part of this whole thing right here, and strip the regimental commander over there. That put me in a position right there, because a lot of the C's over there, it was like I was the bad guy coming into Corcoran's shoe, stripping somebody that had been in a position for 10 years. Carlitos Terrazas, bro, was a regimental commander over there for 10 years. I had to come in there and, to go in and do something like that, man, it's a delicate situation. You don't go in there and just, hey, brother, you got to get up out of your position, or else we're going to put hands on you. I went in there and did it with a little bit of respect. Hey, brother, look, this is what I was told to do. This is what they're asking of you. And obviously, as well as I do, there's consequences if you don't, adhere to what they're asking you, bro, to step down. I need to reappoint somebody before I leave, and I'm just passing through. The other thing that I kind of try to break down in those videos is when you get into the real details of the NF Constitution, it clearly says that in order to make changes, any kind of revisions in the Constitution, you need 3/4 majority vote, which they had. I don't know if they got over there to Santa Rita or Glenn Dwyer, and they were like, you know what, a light bulb went off. Hey, we got everybody we need right here to go ahead and make a vote and to change NF law. They had the 3 generals were over there. They had the inner council and the general council, most of them. They didn't really have nobody left behind but DC. Cornell was stripped. Chuco he's somebody that just got handed a position because he was part of Brown Bob's case, bro. He held his mud, and that was his claim to fame right there. But Chuco's never really done nothing. He was never really part of leadership. This guy just had everything handed to him. And he really didn't even drop a body himself. But that all that it's not really relevant to what we're talking about. They made those decisions while they were over there, and they advised Chuco and Conejo and DC of what they did, and they didn't like it, man. But they were justified in what they did. I told you earlier when we were talking, man, that I seen this coming, bro, back as far back as 2000, around 2000, right before Operation Black Widow broke. I was in the Bay when they pulled all those guys out. I was there when Corny, Tibbs, Pinky, Skip, Stork, when they all got pulled out, right? We all were like, we know something's coming. And it was at that time that we were already starting to put things in place for, if these guys got buried up under some jail somewhere and nobody could communicate with them, there was already, protocol set in place so that transition could be made, right? But it never happened because, again, bro, it's money. Everybody knows that. They didn't want to give up that money. And that's what happened, bro. That's the crux of it right there.
See, that's my point. Okay, the protocol was already set in motion for everybody else to I guess you can exceed in the positions that are going to be next in line. But the 7 principal figures honestly showed up to Santa Rita, and felt like they can do it from Santa Rita, which is okay because from that county jail, you got access in and out through them doors. People coming,
Right.
people going. You have access to a lot to get things done. But why is it? Because they felt like they were in a better position and not in Pelican Bay no longer. That they can say, you know what, we can undermine the rest of the carnales who really don't have no say so because of their political positions, and say, you know what, we're gonna revise it now so we can keep our position in power. That's when I seen it. When I watched it and I thought about it, I was like, bro, that was just them. Like you said, they're not willing to relinquish these positions. They don't want to. When they what they should have done is said, look, bro, we're going to the feds. The feds is way better living, more grounds, more terrain to take over. Now we got access to take over multiple states, develop connections with different organizations, branch out like with Barrio Azteca. Instead, instead they just wanted to take the power for themselves and leave the state faction just in limbo for years. For years. That's why I said I think it was right for them to say, you know what, it's about that time to take the initiative. If not, we're gonna sit here doing nothing for the next 5 to 10 years. Who knows how long? Losing money, losing manpower. Manpower is not gonna be with guidance and direction and an authority figure to answer to. Because people tend to forget we can't communicate with the feds. It's
Right.
bad enough we had a hard time on the main line as Norteños and Souls that were the authorities in charge to communicate with the Bay. We had to go through loopholes after loopholes for Corcoran and the Bay, and only
Yeah.
for us to reach out to them and say, "Hey, look, we got reports to deliver. We have manpower rosters. We also have we need to see payroll." And they write us back like, "Hey, bro, there's nothing we can do. You got to go to the feds. We're just over here sitting here like sitting ducks." That wouldn't have been okay because then you would have seen a lot of authority figures on the yard just abuse that position of power even more and cause a lot of recklessness, cause a lot of chaos because they feel like, hey, we don't have to answer to the state. And until we get in touch with the feds, these are pretty much our yards. So we
Yeah.
kind of needed that guidance and direction from the state leadership to tell us, which, like I mentioned in one of my videos, it was right before my removal. It was 2011. It was called the realignment filter. And when I received that filter, it gave us a list of every federal prison each of these carnales were at, and including talked about Cuete. They said Cuete was incommunicado. He wasn't reporting back to the states. They didn't know where he was at, so he was on freeze. If anybody was to receive any information or a letter from this individual, to disregard it. That we are to only answer to Pelican Bay and Corcoran Shoot to our designated regiment commanders. Because you got to remember, all the prisons in Northern California answered to Pelican Bay, but the ones closer down south, like I was in Sat F, we answered to Corcoran. Corcoran was our regiment commander, which was Mondo Queen at the time. So I think it was important and necessary to get everybody back together and on the same page, and with the end souls working with the carnales, that way they can reestablish themselves. Because if
Right.
not, bro, they would have just dried up back there. They would have had no leadership. They would have had no money coming in, and we were continuously sending money. Us, old Corcoran, and you had Solano and Soledad that were sending money to Pelican Bay and Corcoran Shoe. We still had to look out for our elders at the end of the day.
Right.
But
No, I agree with you, bro. And I can't honestly say either way how long it would have took for them to establish everything if they would have left them back there for years. And if I was gonna make any kind of comparison, what they did to those brothers on death row that made the ultimate sacrifice, that was just kind of messed up. So, the thing is though, man, is like I said, there's a lot of different moving parts. You got one individual, DC, that was really part of the higher upper echelon. That's one of the only ones left that's really part of that leadership, the old leadership. Conejo was stripped. You got Chuco that basically hijacked these positions. Conejo was stripped, like I said. He's seen an opportunity to slide back into a position once these guys were gone, and that's wrong. That sets up. It sends the wrong kind of message, and he knew better. But basically, what it came down to is they were working with what they had left back there. The pickings were slim, man. There's not too many C's that are left from that era. A lot of them are young, but they're not really built for that type of leadership. Regimental commanders, they can run a prison, but to take over the entire organization and be up in positions like that, general counsel, inner counsel, all these guys in the state that were slid, that were delegated these positions, bro. I at least been around since the mid-90s. um I've been a C at least since 94, and I've a lot of those guys I'd never even heard of them, bro. So these are guys that are just barely coming up, and you
Yeah.
slide them into a position like that at the top of the. So I don't know, man. I can't say what their reasoning was, Corny and all those guys, other than maybe from reading those filters, I got the sense too that they didn't want to split leadership up. It made things too complicated. They figured, you know what, we've been leadership, and yeah, we're gonna take over the federal system, but at the same time, we got brothers going out there to California too. Everybody here that's in the feds, that's where they're coming from. They're coming from Cali, so we're still technically running the streets out there. We're still running regiments out there. And who do you got left? You got, with all due respect to DC, he's damn near senile, bro. He's a rubber stamp for Chuco and Conejo. They threw some money at him. They threw some money at him, and he basically just went along with everything that they were trying to do, their agenda. There was money being thrown back and forth between Conejo and Chuco. This is not nothing new. A lot of this stuff was in the filters. People were reporting that, that knew about it. So what do you do, man? Do you have confidence in that leadership that appointed themselves as the new leadership for California? I don't know. I guess that's to be debated,
Well, with Chuko's situation, I honestly think that he did the same thing Smiley did with the DC with D facility dilemma. He found a position, he seen a vacancy. Anybody, I won't say the right state of mind, but when they feel like they can actually succeed in something, I mean, they're always going to be blinded by their own ambitions and their own confidence, and not realizing like there's a greater good of the whole. And there's also the rest of the organization to consider. But he might have just thought of it as an opportunity to say, you know what, this is my time to learn, my time to shine. And I say that because proper protocol, when I was on the main lines and running the couple of prisons that I was at, I was always told that I needed to educate my second in command to always, if I ever get snatched up and validated, he can uphold the authority in charge position. He needs to establish contact with a carnal to reach in the back. So you would think all these carnales throughout all these years before the Black Widow operation would actually sit there and school one another. And if these vacancies were available, would you know how to run these positions? Because like I said, becoming an ANSO, you'd had to learn every position in the COC. You had to learn how to draft up every COC. You had to learn how to govern every COC. You had to hold every position up until the authority in charge. That way you were well fluent to fulfill any position that was available or became vacant. And then we started training the regular Northerners to do the same, because they were validating anybody that has status on the mainlands back when I was in prison.
Yeah.
It was that easy to get snatched up. So we needed to think about the best interest of the people. If all leadership is gone, we need to be able to be secure and confident that some of these Northerners are going to step up to the plate, secure these grounds, and establish communication with Pelican Bay. That way it doesn't come back on us like, bro, you guys left these guys uneducated, misled, unguided, and they got hurt out there and they got taken advantage of. Because at the end of the day, these Northerners ain't going to answer for these. It's going to be the Northerners that previously ran that yard. So that's why I kind of sat back and I watched your video and I'm like, bro, why weren't these individuals trained and educated in the event since proper protocol was already being established? Like, if we're ever gone, you guys fill up these vacancies. There's going to be proper protocols in effect. That's why I kind of look at like the state, they had to do what they had to do. Even if they were uneducated or unequipped to take these positions, they were going to do it regardless. It was just a matter of that when they did, the feds didn't like it because they felt like they were being undermined, which it could work both ways. The feds could have been in the feds and be like, look, bro, you guys can fulfill those vacancies, but we're still the generals. We're the 7 leading principal figures, but we're going to take care of the fed side. You guys take care of the Cali, but you guys still report to us. Just let us know what's going on. Generate your little money from these regiments, but we got bigger issues that we're going to deal with and bigger successes with the street regiments out here, like in Kansas, Colorado. When somebody said they were in Minnesota, Florida, Washington. There's so much money to be made that they didn't have to fight over the state of California for it.
That's true. That's true. But the argument was also made in one of those filters that from the feds, that they clearly said that they weren't just trying to leave the brothers in the Bay behind with nothing. You know, they were trying to establish things, but at the same time, um, you know, they let everybody know. They did let everybody know that DC is the guardian of California. He's the only one that was left as part of that, you know, the upper echelon, the leadership. DC was the only one. There was nobody else left behind. Everybody else was gone, man. Boxer from Selma dropped out. Guerrito from Los Baños, he's gone. You know, a lot of these older dudes, they all Rock from Salinas was, you know, he ended up dropping out. So
Took the whole bank with him.
yeah, you know, yeah, exactly. So I don't think they had a lot of confidence in those guys, man. And everybody knows that DC is getting old, man. He's old. But and then they started hearing about the things that started happening in the state, and that's what just added fuel to the fire. Like, hold up, you guys are peace treaty. What? What are you talking about? We're going to war in the federal system. People don't know that when Skip ended up hitting the federal system first, he ended up taking his deal first. He took his 14 Operation Black Widow, just like he did in the 92 indictments. He jumped on it. They told him, go scout the feds out so that when we get there, we know what we're walking into. They all knew that there were going to be major targets for the Mexican mafia. They're like, that's prime targets right there, the leaders, right? So Skip ends up getting to some of these federal prisons that he'd been to, and the Mexican mafia tells the Norteños, hey, your homeboy's not welcome on this yard.
I remember that.
Yeah, so you know, Skip, they tell Skip, and you know, hey Skip, hey, these cats are saying that you're not welcome out here. And Skip's like, oh, is that right? Okay. And they're like, what are you gonna do? And he's like, well, I don't know what you're gonna do, but I know what I'm gonna do. And you know, so he gets off, right? He goes and gets a banger and he gets off. But I can understand both sides, bro. You know, but how do you think they felt? They're in the federal system spilling blood and they're at war, and these guys are out there playing patty cake, and you know, they're out there playing handball and they're selled up. I mean, it's a good thing, bro. It's a good thing to see Raza out there unifying, right?
Yeah.
But you got to also understand, man, there's a lot of old school C's that they're just, you know, when that happened, they're like, man, I didn't sign up for this right here. This is not what I signed up for. You know, I've been through the wars. I've made a lot of sacrifices. Even a lot of the Southsiders felt the same way. Like all of a sudden, you guys want to start implementing all these policies now that you're out of the shoot program, and you know you're up against consequences now because you could get sent back. Now you want to call peace treaty before, like, the war was on. But now, you know, you guys come out. Imagine how they felt. They're out there. They got cell phones. They don't know how to act, bro. There's dope, cell phones. They go to canteen. They can get all kind of stuff on canteen they've never had back there. I mean, it's like night and day being in the shoe and then going out there to these main lines. So they're like, man, fuck that. We're not letting nobody mess this up. We ain't doing nothing. If anybody gets in the way, we're just going to knock them down. So, you know, they're hearing about all this stuff that's going on in the state. Then they're hearing about, you know, some of these C's that are in the cells, part of the leadership. They're in there getting loaded, getting twacked out, staying in there for 3-4 days without coming out. You know what I mean? Telling the homies that it's okay for them to use now. And there's just all kind of crazy stuff going on, man.
Yeah.
It's like all the years of work and progress that we made, they've destroyed that. They've taken it all the way back, bro. You know?
Yeah, that's very true because I talked to a subscriber who just recently paroled, and I asked him, so what was it like being on the yard with the ANF members and Mexican Mafia members? And he goes, bro, it's weird. And I was like, how so? And he goes, bro, like you'll see them, like both sides have an entourage.
Yeah.
He goes, they'll literally meet in the middle of the yard when everybody's at the polo bars, and then everybody stops, and then the carnal and the other carnal will go 10 feet forward and be quiet, and then they're on the yard like talking to each other, like, what's up, carnal, calling each other carnales. The one side is encouraging one side to get the Palmetto bird, the other side is encouraging the big homie to get the eagle with the G or something. I'm like, really? He goes, yeah, bro, they address each other as carnales like that, as if they were righteously brothers. And I was like, oh, wow, I wouldn't take things that far. But I will say this: the end of hostilities, bro. I've been saying in a lot of my videos, we're talking about decades of bloodshed, but on good standings though. They stood for what they believed in. They broke off. They branched out. They did their war cry against the MN, created a beautiful organization. So I agree with that. But today was the first time I ever heard about the door policy. That's when I was like, what? They talked about this before? I mean, I heard about the Chicanda peace treaty that got the homie hit. And we're gonna talk about that on a later video. But it was about that time. They made some of the biggest sacrifices to get the Sureños and Norteños where they were at today, and then the Norteños and the Sureños started taking care of all the business on the yard while these guys got their kick-ups and got to just sit back in that cell and just it was our time to go to war, the North and South, to show how much loyalty we were to the big homies. But at some point, it's like, bro, they sacrificed everything for everybody on these mainlines to have this kind of yard, to program on these kind of mainlines, to enjoy this kind of time, cell phones, drugs, visits with our family. It's about that time that they enjoy too.
Absolutely.
Because, you know, after ADX, when they finally got kicked out of ADX and now they're wherever prisons that they're enjoying their time. It was just a matter of time, but they're enjoying their time. They got cell phones. They're taking pictures. All of a sudden, all kinds of Fed pictures been showing up. Like, they're living a great life too. So these carnales shouldn't be deprived of that. But the peace treaty, I think it has to be a lot of boundaries, because that history is going to be hard to forget. It shouldn't be forgotten.
Yeah.
Because we shouldn't let it. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I can understand it, bro. Go ahead.
It shouldn't be forgotten, even with the North and South.
Yeah.
All those years, these last 20, 30 years, Northerners and Southerners killing each other on behalf of their big homies' request, on behalf of their big homies' egos of them not wanting to be in compliance and just learn how to shake hands and be grown men. Like, all right, we did what we did. It was a brutal bloodshed. Both sides lost casualties, but we are who we are. We're the M, we're the NF. Let's go our separate ways. Let's go control everything. And let's go see that our people are in alliance with us and are congruent with all of the guidelines and the set direction of the agenda. But instead, they just wanted to be back there fighting each other, trying to see who's bigger and better. And the North and South are the ones really paying the price, because these guys are behind doors, spearing each other with staples and whatnot, barely getting to each other. But knowing what it's like living next to a Sureño who wants to take your head off, and the times that I went into riots with Sureños, bro, and they come 100 deep against 20 of us, you know, that's a hard battle. And sometimes you go back in that cell realizing like you got rushed by 100 Southerners. And it makes you think like, damn, bro, what are we doing? Like, why are we really going to kill each other for what? A misinterpretation of a letter, or for this, for a sack, for a death, for a payroll that didn't get requested? Anything, whatever the wars that went on, that's history that should not be forgotten, because there's a lot of homeboys doing life for murder. There's a lot of Southerners doing life for in-house murders on Northerners. That history is not going to be forgotten. So I think just based on that history alone, it's going to keep the boundaries set right there. Like, bro, we can kick it off anytime and go back to the old ways. So let's remember those times so we don't have to go back to those times. So I just think the carnales do deserve to walk those main lines, bro, and to finally enjoy life. Now, like, indulging in the cell, not being the proper leadership that we looked up to in the beginning. But we all knew on the main lines that our big homies weren't perfect. They weren't.
Right. Yeah, I agree with a lot of it. You know, it's just, you know, when you think about it, I can understand how they're feeling in the feds, though. Yeah, you know, they're enjoying the fruits of being out there on the main lines in the federal system, but it comes with limitation. They can only do that on so many yards, because they're not on the yards with Mexican Mafia members, Sureños. And when they hit those yards, it's on and cracking, bro. There's no ifs, ands, buts. It's on in the federal system. So, you know, when you look at what they've done in the state, man, it's, again, bro, it's a good thing. Anytime that there's you know, that you stop bloodshed, it's a good thing. I think they have a problem with how far they've taken it. I think a lot of them, they were so bent on proving that they were loyal, that they were really, you know, behind the peace treaty, that they were sacrificing a lot of good seeds behind it. If the Mexican Mafia, you know, if there were members out there, certain Imeros that were out there that had an issue with certain things that were going on the yard, they would bring it to Conejo or some of these other seeds, and they just hit them. And I think they were doing that just to show them that we're real about this peace treaty. like we're really behind it. But bro, they messed up. They messed up some good C's, man. Some good solid C's that have been believers for years. Knoppers from Sacramento, Baby Joker from Watsonville, Mateo from Salinas. I mean, the list just goes on and on, bro. Because they weren't with that agenda, though they hit those C's, and it was just because they weren't. You know, one of them got hit, I guess, for because they had some sureños working under them on the yard or something like that. They were slinging dope for one of these C's. And there was a Mexican mafia member that got upset about it. What? They're not supposed to be working for you guys, man. Those guys are sureños. You know what I'm saying? That's our people. Well, hold up, man. How are you drawing those lines now? I thought we were all raza. You know what I mean? But instead of, getting at the brother or resolving it, they just whacked him. What's he doing wrong? What's he doing wrong? He's making money, and they're making money. Nobody's twisting their arm to do it, but there's situations like that I've heard about. That
I never heard that, bro.
Yeah, man. That you say like, wow, man, they're really doing that. I never heard of any of the Imeros, the Mexican mafia. I've never heard how they were sacrificing their people like that. It was just some dirty NF members that were doing it that had an agenda. And that's just it's bad, man. And I think they killed a lot of the voices out there too on these yards. The Norteños, they're scared, bro. They don't want to even speak no more. They killed their voices. Before, we used to encourage them. Hey, you guys got ideas? Bring them to the table, man. Talk about it. You're part of this circle too. Just because you're a Norteño don't mean you ain't got ideas. You're part of the team. So you guys got ideas. You see something we can do better, bring it to the table. You got guys that are pushing hard lines. The lines they're pushing now, they're so hard that these dudes, they don't even want to speak, bro. You know what I mean? I was talking to somebody, a sureño that I just recently came in contact with, and he was telling me that they have a policy out there now, because we were talking about how there's a lot of killings out there now, a lot of homicides in the state prisons, right? 10, 15 years ago, you didn't see that. All you seen was, these guys will run up, they'll slice somebody, poke them a couple times, get them off the yard, get them out the block, get them out of the unit, off the tier, whatever. But now they're implementing, and a lot of that because they had checadas before, remember? Mm-hmm. Where they hit somebody just to send them to the back. They didn't want to kill them, but they just rough them up or whatever, maybe poke them a couple times to send them to the back. There is no back no more. Everybody's out there, so they don't do that now. Now they're telling these guys, hey, take this dude's win. You guys are going to kill this dude. And it's considered a fail now if they don't kill him. That's a hard line to push, bro.
Hell yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And the only exception, at least on their side, and this is what he's saying. I can't stamp it, but the dude seems like an honest dude, but he's telling me that they've implemented that policy that the only exception is if you get shot by the gunner while you're trying to kill this individual. Otherwise, dudes that have failed, they get deemed. So it's either kill or be killed.
Exactly. And I think that's the strongest point out of this whole conversation. A lot of people hear my channel. Some people are a little iffy about it. Like, nah, that's too much. That they're asking for too much, or I might be saying too much. But that's the most valid point that I've heard, is for these youth to understand. You guys want to live this lifestyle and go to prison? Now that the big homies are on the yard, you just said it yourself. Homies are scared to speak up now. A lot of them speak up out here because they're not in the presence of NF members. A lot of them speak up on social media because they don't have the guidance and direction of an NF member to say, hey, bro, you're not supposed to be doing that. So everybody's out here being flamboyant and saying like, yeah, if I ever go to prison, I'll remain active. I'll follow the rules. But you just said it yourself. The homies are so scared to speak up. You're going to enter this lifestyle on the yard with the only intention that's going to be made for you, not your own, is that, hey, bro, kill or be killed. Don't speak unless you're spoken to. Well, what I say goes, and that's it. And that's final. Just like Cuete said it in the El Norte filter. It's not up for debate. So these homeboys got restricted from before the Carnales were on the yard, when they were in the back, when homies had an opportunity to be a part of something, to be a part of the COC, to be part of the Nathaniel struggle, that meant this was ours. This is our thing. The big homies came out and took that away. No, we running everything. You guys are just foot soldiers again. Everybody's a foot soldier.
Yeah.
That's what these kids need to understand. They're gonna be out here gangbanging, still want to shoot up Southerners, want to do red on red crime. You're gonna go to prison. God forbid it end up on that yard, bro. Because after that, everything you do is gonna be if he decided you can do it. And especially if when it comes to, hey, bro, we're gonna send you on a removal and you ain't got life.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. That's what I was gonna say. You're gonna go in there with a drug case, a possession for sale. Maybe you get caught up in a shooting or a possession of a cuete or something like that, a burner, and you go to prison for whatever 5-10 years, but you get sent to go on one of those missions, and it's all or nothing. Now you're catching a life sentence. So it's not cool. It's not cool to go to prison no more. A lot of guys used to look at it as like I'm here. I made it. You know what I mean? I'm gonna have that prison cred now. I got my street cred, my prison cred. I've elevated my status. Well, if that's the game you want to play, you're gonna end up with a life sentence. Or you're gonna be the target of one of those individuals that gets hit and gets killed out there on these yards, man, because of nefarious politics, man.
That and back then it was a lot easier when I could be able to write a letter to a carnal in Corcoran Shoe, or when Bubbles at the time. I was doing it with Bubbles for a little while, and be like, hey, bro, I need your stamp of approval. I want to bring this Solado in. He's well educated. He's ready. He's striving. And it was easy, like, okay, yeah, got him, man. Just make sure you give him my address so you can keep in touch with me in the event that you disappear or you go validated. He can contact me. It was that easy. As long as they had my word, my palabra, I can bring somebody in. There was room for advancement. But now that you got carnales out here who don't want to relinquish no position whatsoever, who want to be the appointed authority whatsoever, it's going to be hard to see these soldiers that are going to be forced in these kill-to-be-killed situations to find that room for advancement. You're going to have to do a lot for advancement. And that one thing is you're probably going to have to catch life on behalf of this carnal to ever become one or to ever be a certified soldier for him. That's the hard sacrifice that people are going to have to start making. But if they want to continue to be active, then be ready to make that sacrifice, because these are the new policies and implementations on the yard.
That's right. Dangerous. That's right. Yeah, that's very well put, bro. So I don't know. You want to continue going? You want to end it here, bro? We got a lot to talk about. We got plenty of time to do it, man. It's.
I think right there that was like you gave them a taste of the fried chicken. They're like, ooh, that was good right there.
Yeah, no. We got a lot of topics that we're gonna get into, and I can talk to you, bro, for just get lost in time, bro. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But we can only run these for so long. Well, we're gonna continue to do this, so we're gonna continue to do it, man. I think you got a fantastic message, bro. You got a good head on your shoulders. And again, like I said, man, people like the chemistry between us when we get on these this type of podcast. That's why we're giving them this podcast. So we'll see how it goes, man. This is for you guys. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. More to come.
Yes, sir. Again, for those of you that might not know, and I believe that I don't think there's too many people that don't. If you guys don't know about his channel, it's Renegade Media, and Paradigm Media News. So we're gonna continue to do this. If you guys got things that you want us to talk about, if you guys got suggestions, topics that you want us to kick around, go ahead and drop them in the comments. Either drop them in his comments or drop them in my comments, and we'll find them. But again, this is for you guys. Hey, brother, it's a pleasure having you on here. I'll be on your channel the next time. That's how we're going to do it. We're going to flip it. One time we'll be on my channel. We'll jump over on his channel. So you guys are going to get, the best of it on both channels. But it was a pleasure. I appreciate it, bro. And with that being said, man, unless you got anything else to add, man, we can go ahead and close this up, wrap it up right here.
Everybody stay tuned, bro. Like, I got questions for days for me and Boxer to go over, bro. So trust me, I watched all his videos for like 4 hours. I said, you know what? We're going to talk about this. So y'all stay tuned, man. We're doing this for your guys' entertainment, man. We appreciate you guys' support.
Go ahead and send them with that what you say at the end of your videos, man.
And like I always say, it's one life, one chance. We only got one chance to do this right. Let's get it done. Peace.
That's right. We out.